Well, hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be answering your questions about skincare for night shift workers. Skincare products are marketed as AM or PM, so if you work nights, it can be kind of tricky to know when to apply what. One of the most common questions I get about skincare for night shift workers is, do I need to apply sunscreen? And if so, when should I put it on? The answer depends on kind of your schedule. So long as it's daylight out, you should be wearing sunscreen. So if you commute to your shift during daylight hours, or you commute home from your shift during daylight hours, then I suggest applying sunscreen before leaving. Now that we're in winter, however, there is a good chance that you leave for your shift and it's pitch black out, and when you leave your shift to come home, it's pitch black out. In which case, as much as it pains me to say this, there's not really a need to be putting sunscreen on. The exception, I would say, is if you work somewhere that has incandescent overhead bulbs, that can aggravate things like melasma and certain photosensitive skin issues, in which case you may want to wear sunscreen during your shift. But for the majority of otherwise healthy people out there who don't have photosensitive skin issues, you don't need to be wearing sunscreen at nighttime while you're indoors. That is a bit overkill. And remember, sunscreen is typically in a moisturizing lotion or cream vehicle, so it will help, reduce water loss. Depending on where you work, a lot of night shift workers, they're working in hospitals and notoriously very drying environments. So it's not, gonna harm you to put sunscreen on before you leave. Sunscreen, it forms a barrier on the skin that can help reduce friction and irritation under the mask. So that is yet another reason to, entertain putting sunscreen on before going to work. When should I wash my face? This is a great question. Wash your face before you go to bed. So after your shift, you come home, depending on when you go to sleep, you wanna wash your face before that. Or you might wanna, wash your face as soon as you get home, chill out for a few hours. That's fine too. But it is important to cleanse your skin, to remove dirt, oil, pollutants, allergens that may have settled on the skin that can compromise the skin barrier. Typically people do this at night before they go to bed, at the end of their day. But since your shift has tilted your day, night all around, do your cleansing, before you go to bed, at the end of your day, at the end of your productivity before you wind down and go to sleep. That's when you want to cleanse. Next question piggybacks off of that, and when should I apply moisturizer? Okay, after cleansing, apply moisturizer to damp skin. So remember, you're going to cleanse your skin whenever you get home from your shift, before going to sleep. So after you rinse the cleanser off, then apply moisturizer. That's gonna be helpful for reducing water loss from the skin that occurs with cleansing. And as you sleep, water will evaporate from the skin as the skin is trying to recover and the barrier is trying to heal. So that is, a reason to apply moisturizer. What about my retinol or prescription retinoid? When should I put that on? I think a lot of people are most concerned about this because you've probably heard that some forms of retinoid are sensitive to light. And that is why we typically tell people to put them on before bed at nighttime. But if you're going into work, you have overhead lighting, is that going to compromise and degrade your tretinoin if you put it on at nighttime? It's a possibility, but a lot of the more modern formulations of retinoids, they are actually photostable. But depending on the form that you're using, you're absolutely right. The stability can be compromised by overhead lighting. In which case, I suggest applying tretinoin right before you go to bed. So when you get home from your shift, you cleanse your skin, you moisturize, put on tretinoin, allow it to absorb, and then go to sleep. Regardless of if you are using retinoid or not, I suggest not sleeping in a room with lighting. You wanna make the room as dark as possible. Use blackout curtains to block light from coming in. This is really important for getting your brain to transition to sleep. This is a real challenge with people who work night shifts. Trust me, I've worked many in my lifetime. And so I know how grueling it can be to come back and try and go to sleep. You're wired, but you want to make the room as dark as possible. And the advantage of that is that if you are going to bed with tretinoin, you don't have to worry about it degrading. And likewise, if you're going to bed and it's, technically daylight out, but you have the room dark, you're not allowing any light in, there's no need to be wearing sunscreen at that point either. This is a great question. When should I apply my vitamin C serum? All right, vitamin C serums are used because Ascorbic acid is an antioxidant. It can help reduce oxidative stress in the skin from exposure to not only UV, but other environmental stressors. Now, it's often advised to apply it in the morning because, people who aren't working night shifts, they're gonna go throughout their day, they're gonna be exposed to sunlight. Having it there in the skin, first thing in the morning may help mitigate some of that. So if you work nights, it's like, well, when do I put it on? Well, it really doesn't matter that much, you guys, honestly, because vitamin C with continued use, it has a depot effect, kind of builds up in the skin. So after a while, that becomes less of a pressing issue. So I suggest applying it the opposite end of your day-night as to when you would be applying your retinoid. It can be very irritating to apply retinoid and vitamin C serums together. That is another reason why we typically tell people to apply one at one end of their routine and the other the following day, night, morning, whatever. So, for example, if you work nights, then I would suggest maybe applying your vitamin C serum before going into work. Put sunscreen on over it if you're gonna be commuting during daylight hours. When you get home, you're gonna wash your face, apply moisturizer, and apply a retinol. If you don't use retinol, then that's fine. It doesn't really matter at what point in your routines, at what end of your day, night, you use vitamin C. But if you're gonna be using other actives, the combination of vitamin C with other actives, other products with other active ingredients, it can be very irritating. I wouldn't worry about when you apply other topicals as far as morning or evening. You can apply them, allow them to absorb, and then go to sleep in the daytime, or you can apply them in the evening before you go into your shift. It really doesn't matter. I think one of the hardest things about working nights, and I have worked many night shifts throughout my lifetime, I think one of the hardest things about working nights is that when your shift is over and you come home, it's daylight out, it is really challenging. It's always been challenging for me to just go to sleep. So here are a few tips, because honestly, when it comes to skincare, we talked about sunscreen. That's probably the product that has, that's doing you the most favors, honestly. But when it comes to skin, it's your lifestyle factors. And when it comes to, and for those of you who work swing shifts, night shifts, your sleep can really start to become, honestly, messed up. And that can trickle into your health in a tremendous way, and it can show up on your skin in the form of acne flares, just more dryness, irritation, more prominent wrinkles, more, your skin is less resilient to external stressors. So I would say the biggest challenge and the thing to think about the most when it comes to your skincare and your skin and your health is how you're going to preserve your sleep cycle while working night shifts. I recommend that you carve out during the daytime hours when you're supposed to be asleep, carve out at least 7, if not 9 hours that you can get good sleep. I mean, that is what the body needs to really recover. Adults need 7 to 9 hours, and a lot of people sacrifice that, and it can creep in ways that really can dramatically impact your health. We're talking cardiovascular disease, all sorts of things. So really carve out that 7 to 9 hours, and about an hour before you aim to fall asleep, try and unwind. One of the things that can really keep you up is bright lights. So I suggest that when you commute home, you wear sunglasses, even if it's not particularly bright out. I mean, I always recommend wearing sunglasses during daylight hours, just like I recommend wearing sunscreen during daylight hours, but wear them from the moment you're gonna see any type of light exiting, and just keep them on. And it may feel strange, like say you stop to go into the store to pick something up, keep the sunglasses on, because it will block out those lights and start to help your brain go into sleep mode more efficiently. I also suggest doing something that helps you relax that does not involve a screen about an hour to 2 hours before trying to hit the bed and go to sleep. Wherever you're gonna be sleeping, make sure the room is cool. Again, with the blackout curtains, you don't want any light in there because that's gonna keep your brain awake. Try as you may to keep any noise out. I suggest getting some kind of like earbuds This was always a challenge for me personally. You know, I don't work nights anymore, but this was always a challenge for me because I'm a very light sleeper. I always found those squishy earplugs would just like pop out of my ear or be kind of uncomfortable. But find something that will block out sound as well, because that, you know, is just gonna wake you up, especially if you're a light sleeper like I am. Don't even keep your phone in your room if at all possible. Eye masks really can help as well in terms of not only blocking out the light, but they kind of force your eyes closed, and I find that that is a peaceful way to start to go to sleep. Here's another tip. When it comes to your actual shift and the relationship you have with caffeine, there's this misunderstanding about caffeine and how it can help you as a performance enhancement and to keep you alert, that more is going to be better. And really, I would say try smaller amounts of caffeine. And by smaller amounts, I mean maybe a cup of coffee rather than a big energy drink that you slam all at once, because smaller doses of caffeine actually can keep you more alert throughout your shift. Caffeine actually kicks in about 20 minutes after you have consumed it. So if it's earlier in your shift, you know, try just having 1 cup of coffee and give it some time to kick in. I think a lot of people make the mistake of slamming big energy drinks throughout their shift. That can leave you very jittery. It doesn't actually improve your attentiveness any better than lower doses. It can just make you feel jittery, and then it can spill over into when you're supposed to be sleeping and make it more difficult for you to fall asleep. So try lower doses, if you will, of caffeine. And by that I mean, instead of having like an energy drink all at once that can kind of make you crash, you know, have a cup of coffee, wait 20 minutes, see how you feel, and then, you know, maybe later on have a caffeinated tea. Staying alert during your shift so that you can actually sleep when you get home. One thing I found to be tremendously helpful is to have ice water to consume instead of caffeine, because ice water, I don't know, something about having ice, it just kept me alert. So try drinking ice water. It will help you stay hydrated, which is also going to help your skin out. Hospitals, they're very drying environments. So stay hydrated, keep drinking water. And, you know, you would think hospital environments, that's my experience. That's where I worked, you know, the most night shifts. You would think, you know, a hospital, they would be supporting health or whatever, but they have the worst food options. And that actually can really mess up your sleep quite a bit, because they will have like fries and pizza and no fruits and vegetables, nothing healthy. And I think you can end up crashing. You have a lot of adrenaline going, and then that makes you very hungry. You can make poor choices when it comes to food, eat too much close to the end of your shift, and that can make it more difficult for you to get good sleep. So try and stick to a consistent schedule when it comes to your eating while working a night shift, because it can end up affecting your quality of sleep. If you eat too much towards the end of your shift and you try and go to sleep, it could cause reflux. You'll just have more difficulty sleeping because you're trying to digest that. So try and stick to some sort of schedule. Meal prep is really helpful. I know it's boring, but that is what I always did and found it very useful. That way I didn't have to rely on, you know, hospital food. Maybe wherever you work nights, they have good quality food and it's not an issue. But man, it was like, I mean, the hospital would offer fruits and vegetables during the day, I remember. And then like for whatever reason at night, they would tuck it all away and just put out cold fries. When it comes to skincare related to working nights and night shift workers, don't overthink the skincare routine. I mean, honestly, as long as you make sure that you have sunscreen on when you're out in daylight hours, you know, don't overthink these other things so much. It's more about keeping your sleep cycle, some semblance of preservation there. It's really important because a lot of things are gonna start to suffer if you don't protect that. I really wish, and you know, I think it's a disservice to employees everywhere who work nights that there's not some sort of training on how to stay on a sleep cycle when you are working night shifts, especially the people who are most vulnerable to health damage are those who work swing shifts. And by swing shifts, I mean you're working a couple of days in a row where you're day shift, maybe you have a day off, and then you switch over to night shifts. I've done that before, and it is not good. It's hard to adapt to. It's really challenging to adapt to. It really can have a huge impact on your health. It's very hard to stay on a consistent sleep cycle because your circadian rhythm gets incredibly disrupted. When it comes to sleep aids, definitely talk to your healthcare provider about sleep aids. You've probably heard people sing the praises of melatonin. I mean, everywhere you look, there's a sleep gummy laden with melatonin. But melatonin actually, I think, from my understanding, I'm not a sleep specialist or anything, but melatonin offers the greatest potential, I think, for those of you who work swing shifts and your circadian rhythm is all over the place. So talk to your doctor if that's something that might be right for you. I actually have a video on melatonin supplements that I'll link down below. Because they're not, all sunshine and rainbows that marketing would make them out to seem. They're, potential risks. So definitely talk to your healthcare provider about them. But for sure, they are an asset to people who have circadian rhythm disruption due to working night shifts, especially those swing shifts, which really, like I said, can really mess you up. And last but not least, this is something that I beg you to really speak up on, especially, ask your employer if there is something they can do to help you out here. If you are exhausted and tired, you've been working nights and your sleep cycle's all messed up, you haven't been getting proper sleep. When it comes time to go home, ask somebody to drive you home. I mean, this is something that is never spoken about, but driving yourself home when you haven't gotten proper sleep and you're sleep deprived, it is akin to drunk driving, and you wouldn't do that. So do not hesitate to ask somebody to give you a ride home if you feel tired, or to call, an Uber, Lyft, any of those types of services, a cab. But if it's something that you're finding you're really, really struggling with, maybe you see some of the other employees that you work with struggling, ask your employer or your HR department if there is something that they can offer as far as vouchers to get a cab home or something like that, because it's really dangerous. Interesting, we're always taught about the dangers of drunk driving and how, it should be considered taboo, it's frowned upon, it's deadly, etc., etc. We all know that. But likewise, being sleep deprived and driving home, it can be equally as dangerous as driving drunk. So I beg you, if you are working these crazy shifts, don't hesitate to ask for help to get a ride home, because it's your life. All right, you guys, those are my tips for skincare for night shift. I know you're probably disappointed that I didn't have some elaborate, put this serum on at this time and put this mask on and do this and scrub your face this way, but that's not me. I mean, honestly, sunscreen is single-handedly the most important skincare product. And when it comes to night shift, as long as it's not daylight out, then you don't necessarily need to be worrying about that. So keep it simple. Again, if you complicate things, it's just gonna stress you out. And the most important thing when it comes to night shift work is preserving your sleep cycle, staying in some sort of consistent routine. I hope this was helpful to you. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. And as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.